Greetings, greetings. Hope you all are well. Happy November. If I haven't seen you yet, I've seen most of you though. Many of you. Come on in. I'm sharing this. When you get here, if you can, do the same. Sharing strengthens our reach, allows us to positively impact more people. So if you would do that, that would be great. I'm looking forward to tonight's talk. I'm sharing this to a couple pages. Welcome. Come on in. Come on in. Let's talk. Let's talk tonight. I see you all coming in. Good deal. Good deal. Hello. Hello. Welcome. Welcome. Just giving everybody a couple minutes to come in. Let's see. Make sure I can bring Daniel on the screen when he comes. Let's see. All right. Emily says she's on handcuffs right now. One of Daniel's phenomenal chapters. I'm so excited that several of you have received your books. Just makes this discussion so much more rich. So cool. This has been quite a ride. Daniel,
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You sideways though.
All right, let me. It's the headphones. My port's at the bottom.
Gotcha.
Let's see if I
Gotcha. Well,
can.
welcome. Welcome.
I just hold it.
Awesome. We're getting there. And we don't have an echo. See? Progress. We're doing great. We're doing great. Welcome, everybody. Just giving the people a couple minutes. Daniel and I have a lot that we want to talk about tonight. I'm looking forward to it, another good conversation. The content last week on cultural navigation was phenomenal. I went back and listened to that again uh, just this morning. And man, it was great content. We appreciate you all contributing to the richness of the discussions. This is so cool. We got some comments when you were on your way, Daniel, people telling us what chapter they're on, and
Nice.
all that kind of fun stuff. Yeah, so that's so exciting. So much fun. So much fun. Good to see you all. Good to see you all. All right. Great. How you doing? Oh, I'm so glad you're here, Mrs. Thornton. Welcome, welcome. We appreciate you and your support. I sent the reminder out there. I hope you saw it. Great. Listen, we're going to go ahead and get started. We appreciate you all coming in. We are, again, just super excited that many people who pre-ordered the book have it in hand. Some of you have completed it. Um, People are reading it in like one or two sittings, so that's really cool. It lets us know that you're really engaged in it, and that's just awesome. And we're enjoying hearing your feedback, hearing what your favorite chapters are, favorite or most impactful. Sometimes it's hard to say something is your favorite chapter when it's really tough content, but it may be your most impactful. So that's exciting. We're looking forward to diving into that more, but we are excited also today about this Let's Talk series. But before we even get into that, I need to just remind you all that tomorrow you need to vote and read. If you haven't voted already, I'm so glad I cast mine already. But this is that time of year. Vote, and that's a important, imperative thing. We need every citizen to use their right. People have fought, bled, and died for the right for us all to be able to vote. And so use that. Don't just dismiss it. This is your opportunity. Let your voice be heard. If your voice isn't heard in the vote, then it doesn't have the right to be heard in the complaints. So let's make sure that you're doing that. But then also tomorrow is November 3rd, and that is the official release date for Wounds, a collaborative memoir in stories. written by this guy right here, Daniel Abbott, and myself. And we are just so excited, so appreciative of the support that we've received, so appreciative of this early feedback, people letting us know that it's driving them to action. And that is so critical. That's so important to us. So we're excited. We're enjoying this ride. We're buckled up, and we're ready to keep on furthering these conversations and furthering our abilities to be able to impact our environments, to be able to impact our culture, to be able to impact our spheres of influence. So we're so glad that you're here with us tonight so that we can engage deeply in this conversation. Like I said, last week we began with a conversation on the subject of cultural navigation. And I think there were several nuggets and several great things that people were able to take out of that. And we looked a little bit at the cultural intelligence and how Daniel and I, because of our experiences, which we didn't always appreciate, but we have been able to learn how to move from one environment to another environment, from one culture to another culture, seemingly, and that's the key word, seemingly, seamlessly. Even though sometimes that comes with some challenge, with some obstacles, with some pain, it has birthed through those wounds. It has birthed the ability for us to have a fuller, richer life, full of engagement, full of understanding people who may look different than us, and being able to dive into life and do life with people who do life in a variety of ways. And so that conversation was really deep. And there's a couple questions that we didn't get to that we're going to start with to transition us tonight before we get into our topic of fight the fight. But let me just set that up because I'm going to talk less after we get this whole thing all set up. But the thing that we're going to talk about tonight, the subject is fight your fight, fight your fight. And what we mean by that is that each one of us, regardless of our background, regardless of our culture, regardless of our personality. Yeah, sometimes we think, well, my personality doesn't allow me to do anything to contribute to the fight against injustice. Regardless of your makeup, there is something that you can do to positively impact the fight against racial injustice. And I hope that that's something that's important to all of us, to make sure that the playing field is level, to make sure that people are being treated in a human way, humane. That's not a high hill. That's not a huge goal. Just treat people like humans should be treated, regardless of the difference, regardless of the skin color, regardless of belief systems, regardless of religion, regardless of if they're Democrat, Republican, or independent. Yeah, all of that. Learn how to treat people with a level of respect and humanity. And so we're going to talk about how, regardless of our background, we can do that. And there's some ideas and there's some experiences that we've learned through our lives that may be able to help someone else to figure out what can you do to contribute to the leveling of the playing field, to the fight against injustice. So that's what we're going to get to. But before we dive there, we're going to jump back into our cultural navigation conversation. I have one question that I really wanted to ask Daniel that I didn't get to, and I think he has one for me as well. So let me start by asking this, Daniel. What advice would you have for a white person who really wants to be able to successfully navigate other cultures? We talked about your ability to do it, but what if there's someone else who's looking, someone else who's listening to us tonight, who really wants to know, how can I gain that ability to navigate diversity, to navigate different cultures successfully? What advice would you have for somebody trying to do that?
The first part is easy. Difference is beauty.
Yeah,
There's nothing wrong with difference. Difference gives us the opportunity to learn, to grow, different perspectives. And so many people are intimidated by things that they don't understand, or by things that aren't, they don't jibe with the way they go through their own lives. And that intimidation closes them off. It builds walls and it prevents growth and understanding, and it prevents better. Difference is better. That's a
yeah,
simple concept to get started. But then the work begins. You have to unlearn your experiences.
yeah,
They're so many white people that I know that don't have a lot of experience with other cultures, the limited experience informs their biases. It creates an assumption that every person of color is this way. Like, I can think of my wife's job. Last week, I mentioned that she was the only person of color in her office. And in her office, as a woman of color, she's an anomaly. They cannot figure out why she's that bad, that she's that good at her job.
Right. Right.
It blows their mind that she's that intelligent, that she's that productive, that she can do twice as much in half the time as everyone else. But what they don't know is every child of Raymond and Vidra Gant is that way.
Right.
They were raised that way. You put
Right.
you put a child of Raymond and Vidra Gant in an office in a situation, and you know you're married to Camille.
Yeah.
Our wives make us better men, and that's what people fail to realize.
Yeah.
Today, Vanessa came home almost in tears from work, from the experience she had, and I texted you about this earlier. But to give you a glimpse into the life of a person of color in an office that is predominantly white, she was right before lunchtime. A coworker came into her office without knocking on the door, uninterrupted, and spent 15 minutes congratulating himself on go on going down to the floor, the production floor, and educating. He used the word educating the black employees on why they need to vote this year.
Oh, wow.
And you know Vanessa,
Right.
she's rolling her eyes in her head and she's smiling and looking at him like, "Thank you so much for your contribution. Now get out of my office so I can get back to work."
Daddle.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the door's closed and she's got her hand in her head like, "I hope Wounds becomes a bestseller so I can leave this job." Moments after that, her friend from work, an ally, comes in the office and invites her to go to lunch. And Vanessa's all over it. "Yes, I want to leave this office. I want to go to lunch." And on their way out the door, the owner of the company asked her where they're going. He said, "Can you guys go to Popeyes?" And her friend was like, "I don't know where Popeyes is." And he was like, "Have Vanessa drive."
Oh, no.
So
Wow.
immediately Vanessa's biting her tongue. And they go to work and she vents to her coworker, and Vanessa has every intention of making an appointment with her supervisor, the owner of the company, to address this issue.
Right.
She gets caught up in something when she gets back, and her friend, who has her back, goes into the office and tries to explain to the owner of the company why he was being offensive. And the thing about this man is, Vanessa's worked there for a while. He's a good man. He really, really cares about people. He cares about doing the right thing. He cares about every employee that is under his watch, regardless of their color. But he just, as far as cultural intelligence goes, he's just oblivious. So she deals with things like this on a daily basis. So her friend goes in there on her behalf without Vanessa knowing, and naturally the owner, who, like I said, is a good man, wants to bring Vanessa into the office to address it. And his sincere apology included him telling her he doesn't see color
Oh, boy.
and that he doesn't view her as black.
Wow.
Now, part of your career
Wow.
part of your career, Rajel, is to go into companies like this and prevent these situations from happening. And
Yeah.
we could spend a week talking about this situation, breaking it down, and talking about all the ways that this was handled poorly And
Yeah,
we don't have time to do that. So
man.
what I'm going to say is you need to leave your assumptions at the door
Hmm.
and take the time to understand that every human being, regardless of their color, has a different world perspective.
Yeah,
You have a different world perspective than another black man,
right.
than another black woman, than
Hmm.
many people of color that are from different backgrounds than you. You're
Right.
unique. You're uniquely
Yeah.
beautiful. And that's
Mm.
what a lot of people fail to realize. And I know you've spent a lot of your professional career working in mostly white institutions and you've dealt with this on a regular basis. But
Hmm.
now for the past couple of years you've been in a
Hmm.
predominantly black institution. Have you
Yep.
come across any different obstacles and different things that have opened your eyes a bit to this stuff?
Man. Well, first of all, that's so heavy, and like you said, we could do an hour on that whole thing because you got some microaggressions in there, some macroaggressions. I know those might be new terms, but we'll probably do some talks on that on what is a microaggression. We'll probably talk about that later. But it's those small things, but those small things add up, and it can even be something that comes up. I don't mean to talk about this right now, but it could even be something that comes off as a compliment. There,
Right.
the intention is a compliment, like, oh, Rajel, you are so articulate. Um, that sounds very positive, but the veiled undertone of it is, I'm so surprised that you know how to talk. Uh, um, and so, you know, when you like, we'll do a talk one of these weeks. We'll talk about microaggressions, and that will be an enlightening discussion. But yeah, and then you got the whole, I don't see color, I'm colorblind, color doesn't matter. Well, why not? Why don't you see me? And first of all, you might want to go get your eyes checked. We have color, and there's nothing wrong with it. There is a lot right with it. You made a statement, I wrote it down. You said difference is better. Like, that's the initial premise. Like, you need to understand that there is a benefit, that there's beauty in our difference, that the fact that we are not robots and clones helps us to have a diversity of experience, a diversity of perspective, a better idea of looking at stuff. But yeah, you brought up a great point. I've worked at PWIs, predominantly white institutions, the majority of my life, and attended school in predominantly white institutions as well. And so yeah, you get calloused maybe at times when you have these experiences, and it's like, unfortunately, not shocking. And so, a lot of people will be like, I can't believe you endured that, I can't believe you went through it. It's like, well, actually my muscles have been built up in that area for years, so it's going to take a lot to shock me at that point. But so yeah, those experiences happen a lot. On the flip side of it, now I work at a beautiful HBCU, which stands for Historically Black College or University. And it is the first time in my professional career that I have been a part of the majority. Um, that's an interesting thing, to go to work as part of the majority, and you don't really have to think about your blackness that much. You don't have to represent your whole race because your whole race is represented. You don't have to prove that you have capabilities, like start from the base, from underneath, and have to work your way up to prove that you're capable. The assumption is, hey, if you got hired, you must know how to do it, and it frees you. It frees me to be able to instead focus my energy and my attention on making sure that I make impact, making sure that I do my job well, making sure that I get results. What I have figured out from this, I've only been there for a year and a half, is that this is the experience, and this is the part that kind of blows my mind. This is the experience that most white people have their whole lives.
Right.
And it's like, so I've had this year and a half where it's like, oh, I don't have to prove myself this morning, or I don't have to wonder how my blackness impacts somebody else's whiteness. I don't have to posture myself and code switch. We talked about that last week. I don't have to worry about those kind of things. Now, we do have other issues. working with all of my people. I love my people. There's beautiful people. I love that I can go in to an office and I can find people who look like me, who understand my culture, who I don't have to explain my jokes to, who I don't have to explain the television shows that I like to, the music that I listen to. They can relate to that. That's beautiful. I'm not trying to be Marcus Garvey and tell us all that we need to go back to Africa, but it is beautiful to have a majority experience in a professional setting. But we as all people, all human beings are human beings and are flawed, and we got some issues, and we have some baggage. We have some ways, some habits, and sometimes we fall into some of the stereotypes. And so that can be frustrating. It's like, come on, we can do better. We can do better. We can do better. And so I challenge people who look like me, people of color, when we get in a position of authority, of power, let's show the world that we are good, that we're good at what we do, that we have abilities, that we have skills, and that we can rock it like nobody else can rock it because nobody has your swag, your style, your flavor, or your flow. Nobody can quite do it like you. We just do things a little bit different. And so let's use that to our advantage and have a positive impact. And let's make sure that when we are in that position, that we don't neglect the beauty of diversity, that we bring people in who have a different mindset, a different perspective, a different race, a different background, a different belief system. Let's make sure that we're making sure that everyone is represented at the table, that we have good gender balance, that we have all this stuff. And so that's where my job gets into, like, okay, how do we do diversity when we are the majority? And that's been an interesting and a unique thing. But yeah, I'm rambling. I'll talk about that all day too. Yeah, so we might have to have some conversations on that as well. Yep, I
I,
saw you about to say something.
no,
Yep.
I just love it. It just made me think of the importance of being meek.
Yeah.
A lot of people confuse meek with weak.
Yeah.
And what people fail to realize is meek is the ability and strength with discernment.
mm,
Power without discernment is dangerous. And
yeah.
when you have great power and you have the ability to use judgment and kindness and empathy and not seek revenge, that's a beautiful thing, and it's an instrument for change. And I like that you look at it that way in your position when you be very justified in looking at a different way.
Yeah. And some people, unfortunately, do look at it a different way. But my thing is, if we do the same thing that we have been oppressed with, then we become oppressor, and all of our complaints are then invalidated.
Yep.
So if I say, you shouldn't do that to me, but then when I get in power, I do the same thing to you, that makes me hypocritical. And it makes it so that everything I said now has no weight, has no value. And so, in order for us to maintain value, we have to really, truly live up to these virtues that we want, that we deserve, not just that we want, that we deserve, that are right, that are humane, that are justified. And so, yeah, that's what that is. So, okay, you can see we will talk about this cultural navigation thing like forever. And I do think there's so much to it. I think we could dive into like other angles of that. And we'll think about like that might be something that's something that we've been kicking around a little bit. We might need to do a part two to the cultural navigation piece.
Yeah.
But tonight, I want us to move on because you came for Fight Your Fight. You're probably like, what are you talking about? Why are you guys fighting? You guys are, and some of you all are reading the book, and you're like, man, they do a lot of fighting. Uh, in the book. But we were maturing, we were growing up. Now our fight is different, and our fight is focused in different directions. But in our remaining time, I want us to address a meaningful question. I would say this is the question that I get um, pretty often. It often comes from white people, but not always. It can come from someone of any background, of any race. And that question that I know Daniel has received, I have received, what can I do about racial injustice? What can I do? I see that things are wrong. I see that things are unfair. I see that there are inequities. I see that this workplace is all messed up. I see that this school is all jacked up. I see that this church is the most segregated hour of the week. I see in my community that it feels like we're isolated and that we're siloed in different sections based on skin color. And so it's so big. It's such a macro problem. It's such a huge thing. The question becomes, what can little old me do about it? And so I want us to deal with that a little bit with a few questions. And so the first question I have for you on that subject, Daniel, you mentioned, I believe it was in your chapter on forfeiting white privilege, that you feel that you've spent a lot of time in your life kind of avoiding getting fully engaged in this fight against racial injustice. You mentioned um, that, and I've long thought of you, like as long as I've known you, as an ally. But just because somebody thinks of you as an ally doesn't mean that you think of yourself as an ally. Because there's a moment, there's a clicking, there's a connection point where your thoughts and your attitude turns into action. And that an ally is a person who's about action. And so you said that, you know, in your growth, in your development, you haven't always thought of yourself in that capacity, in that way. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey and that discovery, and your decision to more fully engage in the fight against racial injustice?
Absolutely. We've been talking in both of these live feeds about micro and macro,
Mm-hmm.
and until recently, I've been a micro influencer.
Mm-hmm.
I've been an ally to my friends, to my family.
Yeah.
I've had these discussions with you, with my children, with my parents, with
Mm-hmm.
my brothers, with my sisters. But by nature, I'm incredibly introverted. I
Yeah.
don't I don't want the spotlight. I don't want attention. I told myself for years and years and years to deal with this at a family level.
Mm.
And for years, I went on like this, and until I witnessed the execution of George Floyd.
Mm.
When I saw the look on that police officer's face, and I saw everybody watching, it, man, for me, as a father of 8 biracial children and 4 sons, it was Kevin's neck
Mm.
underneath that knee. It was Simeon's neck
Yeah.
underneath that knee, and it was too much. It
Yeah.
got to that point where I didn't have a choice anymore. I had to do something, and when I had that moment, and you had the moment at about the same time, and
Right.
I think you would probably describe yourself very similar to how I described myself personally before the events that happened this year. But the immediate question I asked myself, and I'm asking other white people in this book to do, is what can I do? And
Mm-hmm.
for me, it was pretty obvious. I'm a writer. I'm a novelist. I
Yeah.
have the ability to tell stories, and I have a lot of experience with this stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
it was a matter of stepping out of my bubble and telling my stories and
Yeah.
doing what I can do. And to circle back and answer the question, we all have different talents and abilities. We all have different
Yeah.
platforms. I mean, uh, my Facebook friend Tim Biesiegel, who's been very vocal about a lot of this stuff. He designs T-shirts. He's a screen
Mm-hmm.
printer. That's what he does for a living. If you're Tim and you want to do something, screen print, make
Mm-hmm.
T-shirts. If no matter what you do, you can use your platform to influence. And
Yeah.
on a micro level, you can correct your racist uncle,
Mm.
your racist
Mm-hmm.
racist grandparent. You can explain to them with love why their thinking is broken. I mean, how many of
Yeah.
us over the years have been like, that's crazy Uncle Bob being crazy Uncle Bob, and just let it
Mm-hmm.
slide.
Yeah.
It's the time for letting things slide is over.
Yeah.
And I'm incredibly proud of my parents and my siblings for a lot of the things that they've been speaking up a lot.
Hmm.
You know, my dad would be embarrassed to hear this. I hope he's not watching because I don't want to embarrass him. But Vanessa told me that he confided in her that he kicked somebody off of his property for saying something racist. And that's not my dad's
Mm.
style at all. My,
Yeah.
my, my dad is a very, very good and honorable man, but he's a very quiet, compassionate man. And for him to step up and take a stand in his own yard in the context of a family setting, like
Mm-mm.
my
It's
cousin was,
huge.
yeah, my cousin was there, and I'm incredibly proud of my dad. And I don't know if he would have that ability without having 8 biracial grandchildren. You know,
Right.
he loves his family and he loves his
Right.
grandchildren. And to say something now in 2020 against my dad, around my dad, back
Hmm.
up.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I'm
It's
I'm
so
the
funny. Your mom. You see your mom's comment.
no.
She said he is watching. Yep. He
Uh, sorry, Dad.
That's awesome. That's
on
awesome.
the
But
on the
no.
flip side, Raj, though, what? let me let me switch back to you.
Retreat.
Retreat. What would you suggest people do
Oh man.
in that fight on a macro or a micro level?
Yeah. I mean, I absolutely agree with what you said. I am a strengths-based person. Many of you have engaged me and know that I do training with the Gallup Strengths. And so just as you said, a huge thing is figuring out what are your skills, talents, and abilities. What is your calling? What is your gifting area? And when you recognize that, that's what we need. And so, for instance, I was talking to a good friend of mine the other day, and he too is an introvert. And he's like, man, he said, you're not going to find me on the front lines of a protest. That's not my style. Um, but he's a musician, he's a human resources person. We have a lot in common. And so he's making hiring decisions. He's speaking truth to power about hiring decisions and about the leadership of the company that he works with. He creates music. He does different things in his area. He uses who he is to impact where he is. And that's what you need to do. You have to find out, who am I and how can I use who I am to impact where I am. And so, I don't think that it's a bad approach to start at that micro level, the family level, I don't think that's bad, because when you influence individuals, you are impacting systems, because
Mm-hmm.
systems are comprised of what? Of individuals. So big things are made up of small things. So if we can impact a whole bunch of the small things, then we can change the big thing. But also, in that process, you're building those muscles. You're developing strength. And so if you can, if you all know who I am, so it's going to come out every now and then. The scripture's going to sneak out by accident. If you can be faithful over small things, then he can give you some authority and make you a ruler over bigger things. But if you don't handle the small situations, then you never, ever, ever will be able to confront the big situations. So it's that starting with confronting, confronting the person who says something that good and well they shouldn't say, and telling them, hey, that's not cool. That's not how we do here. It's standing up for someone who's being overlooked or mistreated. It is having the courage to be different, the courage and the comfort with saying, I don't agree with you. I'm going to be different than that. I'm not just going to conform so that you accept me, so that I fit in, so that I meet your expectations, but I'm going to stand up. So maybe your thing isn't a protest. Maybe it is. We need that too. We need all angles of this. This fight against injustice is huge. So just like in a war, you don't only have snipers. That would be a bad strategy if you only had snipers. You're going to lose. You need some people on the front lines. You need some strategists that aren't even on the battlefield. You need some people who can repair the equipment. You need people who can hand out the equipment. You need the person playing the little drummer boy, making sure that you all are on one accord. You need all of these pieces to be able to really engage this. And so, whatever your piece is, now, the challenge is make sure that you are using you to impact where you are. Make sure that you are willing to stand up when you see injustice. Don't just turn your head. Don't just close your mouth. Don't just say, well, it didn't really impact me, so I'm going to be quiet about it. But instead, use who you are to impact where you are. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's the beginning of how I would at least answer that. And fight your fight. So that's the name of our talk. Now, I did want to say that other thing. That's like when I think of that, like the first time I remember hearing people talk about fight your fight, it's usually boxing language. Daniel is a boxer. He could tell you about this better than I could. But if you're a dancer in the ring and now all of a sudden you're trying to throw power punches, you're not that powerful. But maybe you're that quick. You got to fight your fight. If you try to fight somebody else's fight, you're going to lose. Oh man, if you try to take Saul's armor, I'm not trying to preach. I don't mean to. This isn't a religious thing. It's a biblical reference. I can try to do it like this. There was a king in Israel in history, uh, and he had armor, and he tried to give it to a shepherd boy who was going to fight a giant in a battle. But he could not fight Goliath with Saul's armor. You have to use who you are to impact where you are.
And
Yeah. So yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. You about to
speaking of
try to pull that
biblical,
out of me.
yeah,
Okay, here we go.
yeah. Speaking of biblical,
Yeah.
as a pastor,
Hmm.
trained in the art of self control and being
Yeah.
neutral.
Yeah.
Now that
Training
you've
doesn't always. Go ahead.
in the book, we get a little bit of angry, Raj. I
Yeah.
mean, you still have some self control with your words, but you can really feel the inner turmoil in a lot of the sections
Hmm.
in the book. And
Hmm.
I'm wondering, as a pastor and as a man,
Hmm.
where do you find that balance of faith and action?
Yeah. Whew, that's a tough one. I knew you were going to hit me with it, but man, I didn't know you were going to hit me right then. I was postured, but no. Um, Number one, I have an awareness that those are not mutually exclusive. No matter how spiritual people view you, you are still a human.
Right.
And you still have feelings, you still have emotions, you still say bad words in your head. Even if you've learned how to control them and not say them so much out of your mouth, you still want to fight sometimes. You still have to fight sometimes. You still have to be willing to defend where necessary. And so I being a pastor and being trained, that's what your question made me laugh because having training is not the same thing as actualizing that training. And so if you catch me on the wrong day, you're not going to realize that I'm Pastor Jones. Uh,
Right.
um, if you attack my family, you're not going to realize that I'm Pastor Jones. If you trigger certain things, then the Lord's going to have to work with me, and I'm going to have to repent, and I'm going to have to I'm going to have to try again. um, so there's that humanness, and so I've never made the mistake of believing that a title makes you immune from human reactions, from human feelings, from messing up, from losing control. And so that's the thing. So that's why anybody I've ever pastored, I've told them, hey, don't look to me to be perfect. I know that's what Jesus did, but I'm not Jesus. Uh,
Yeah.
um, I haven't made it. I haven't arrived. I'm a work in progress. Um, you know, so yeah, but that balance. But even okay, one more thing. So even as we're navigating this subject matter, and as tomorrow is election day, that the responsibility that comes with pastoral leadership, even as our Constitution has described it, causes me to sometimes withhold letting everybody know the whole of what I think. So like in a political thing, if you run a nonprofit, you're not supposed to be trying to tell people who to vote for. Um, Let me say that for the people in the back who keep doing it. Uh, um, you're not supposed to do that. You have committed that you're not going to do that. Now, after the election's over, I'll tell you. And some of you all know me enough, you know my thought pattern, and you're not wrong. So you can probably figure it out. But I want you to vote for who you feel your conviction leads you to vote for. And there's a lot of things to consider. There's a lot of issues to look at with that. But my job isn't to try to influence that. And I have to always wear that hat. So I guess I bring that up to say, like, that hat never comes off because it's a part of who I am. So if I could easily just take it off and say, well, right now I'm not going to be that, that's out of order because it doesn't align with my identity. So same thing when I fall into a temper, when I fall into a negative reaction, when I fall into cutting someone down or using sarcasm in a negative way. I'm not reflecting that identity, and I have to work on that. I'm going to keep doing that. I'm going to mess up. I'm human, but I have to keep on working on that. And so that's how I navigate it. And one more thing, it is not my job to judge anybody else, and I recognize that. And I do my best to live the way I interpret Scripture. And we have some good examples in Scripture that that's not really what your job is.
Right.
It's not my job to condemn you. I don't have to do that. I'm going to encourage you. I'm going to build you up. That's my job when I'm doing my job right.
So you strive to
Yep.
maintain your
Yeah.
meekness.
I strive. I do my best, and some days it's more of a struggle than others. But that's the goal. And the minute you lay your goal down, then you're not who you say you are. Yeah. So, yeah, that's a great question. So let me ask you, Daniel. I got to get this heat off of me now. Um, in this journey, uh, what have you found that you can do? Like, so you came to this point of discovery. You're like, I gotta be willing to do a macro level. I was laughing when you were answering the question before because you said you don't like the limelight, you don't like being in the front. Well, sorry about that because that's where you are, and that is so often how it works. Like the people who want the background are often pushed to the foreground, and the people who are like clawing out of the jar trying to be in front of everybody often get pulled to the back and say, hey, you need to sit down somewhere. Uh, so let me know about that from you. In this journey, what have you found that you can personally do to address your concerns with racial inequity?
Okay, I think I can relate it to Emily's got a question on chat. I'm seeing like half of it. It's a question about being an introvert and being propelled into being an extrovert to get stuff done. And
Mm,
and that's something I can definitely relate to. When my
yeah.
first novel came out in 2018, it's like writing the novel took 3.5 years, and
Mm,
it was all done in private. It was done at home
mm,
at 4 o'clock in the morning when Vanessa and Jude were sleeping, and it was a very alone process, and it was very satisfying. I'd send my draft out to Connie, my advisor in grad school, and she'd send it back to me, and everything was beautiful, and it was work, and it was great. And then my publisher set me up with a book tour,
mm,
and I had to go to New York, I had to go to LA, I had to go to Boston, I had to go to West Virginia, I had to go to all these places and be away from my family and engage people on a personal level. I had to have people asking me questions constantly, and I almost lost it. Like,
mm.
like I'm very fearful of doing right now. You know, Rajel and I have had many conversations about this very topic. And
Hmm.
what I have found is if you're an introvert by nature, you need to always make recharging your batteries a priority.
Right.
If, like in this case, to circle back to the question, it was very obvious what I had to do to fight racial injustice. I had to get with you and write this book.
Right.
And to do that, we have to do things like this. We have to get in front of people and explain the book and share our experiences. And I'm enjoying it. I enjoy sharing this part. But if I do it too much, you know, I get depressed. I,
Yeah.
I lose a piece of myself. So I have to look for opportunities to be alone for a day or two, or
Hmm.
to make sure I don't skip days at the gym. I make sure I do that because the gym is an outlet for me. Make sure I'm
Hmm.
reading. Make sure I'm staying in scripture. I have all these
Hmm.
different things that I know about myself that recharge my batteries. So I don't
Hmm.
I didn't get all of Emily's question, but it
It
looked
looks like
like
she had a lot of a comment. I think you addressed it well, and she mentioned that she was an introvert and was made to be an extrovert to get things done. And so yeah, it's right along the lines of what you're saying. I know for her, she had to go to run for political office and be a
oh wow.
spokesperson. And just like you're saying, so like an introvert, I do training on this kind of stuff too. An introvert can step out of that introversion and take the forefront. But just like you said, after they do that, they're drained. They need to go still away by themselves and refill. They need like no people. No, not right now. So you can turn it on for a little while, but it drains you. Whereas the opposite of that, an extrovert, when they get the opportunity to do that, they're energized. And at the end of it, they're like, "Let me do that again. When will I have this opportunity again?" And if they're by themselves, they become drained then. And it's like, I need some people time. And so, yeah, just knowing yourself. And that's a big part of this. So, yeah, that was a great question in the chat
An
that was brought up.
introvert
There's another.
an introvert
Go
running
ahead.
for introvert running for office. We need to like pause everything and just like give her a group hug.
Group hug, right?
I can't
Right.
imagine.
Yeah. Another question. I think it's time for us to engage some of these questions. Bobby Lunwall said, "Is there a difference in passion for fighting racial injustice?" And then he clarified. He said, "What I mean is, how do you convey the same level of attention and fire in your fight if you are someone like me, a white person with no biracial children, compared to a person of color or a person like Daniel who has family of color? I feel like there's a level of involvement of being in the middle of the worst parts of racist America that someone in my position might not be able to comprehend." That's a great question.
It really
Daniel,
is.
yeah, you want to start with that one? I
Well,
might have more to add, but
well,
yeah.
thanks for joining us, Bobby. He's a friend from Grand Valley, a phenomenal writer who
Go Lakers.
needs to be writing more. He's a very successful businessman right now, but he can find some time to write. He's he's good at satire. But
Nice.
to answer your question, you're not going to care as much as me and Rajel. You aren't.
Mm,
It's personal when it's your children. You know, you care more about your children and your family. But what you can do is you can commit yourself on a human level. Don't get exhausted. Find something to do, even if it's the smallest thing, and commit to it. And
hmm
that's what I the pattern that I see on social media, and social media, I'm growing to absolutely loathe it. But the the pattern I see with white people who care on social media is something happens. Trayvon Martin happens, Ahmaud Arbery happens, George Floyd happens, Breonna Taylor happens, and for weeks at a time, they post and they post and they speak and they speak, and it becomes white noise. It becomes silence. it becomes the Lions lost again this week. It becomes Dak Prescott twisted his ankle. What's my
Mm-hmm.
fantasy football score? You know, we get exhausted, and this is a fight that's been going on long before we were here. And the reason this fight continues to go on is black people are losing this fight alone. We bail.
Mm-hmm.
We bail. Rajel has to continue being black as
Mm-hmm.
this stuff goes on. I have the privilege of walking into a store without my family and being a relatively clean cut, reasonably well spoken white man. I don't have those issues. Let me walk into the same store holding my wife's hand. Or I remember another time I was walking out of Meyer with my oldest son, and I've walked into the same Meyer 10,000 times. And I'm walking out of the store with my son, who was 19 at the time, also very clean cut, and they stopped us to check our bags.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've walked out of that same store, no exaggeration, 10,000 times. And that's the difference. I get the privilege and the horror of experiencing this from two different points of view. And as a white man, what makes me different than Bobby and a lot of other people is I'm leaving a black legacy. I have 8
Mm-hmm.
biracial children. All of my grandchildren will be some percentage of black. It's my responsibility as their father, as the head of my family, to do something about it. You know, I don't get exhausted. I'm in it for the long haul. And those of you that don't have the same personal investment and the same personal responsibility, it's a matter of commitment and love and willingness to think of people outside of your bubble and outside of your safety zone. I hope I answered that okay.
That's great. Can I add? So one of the tools that I train on a lot is the cultural intelligence assessment. Um, and for short, it's CQ. You know, like IQ, but it's the cultural intelligence quotient (CQ). And so it's composed of four parts. And so, Bobby, this made me think of this. And the first part is CQ drive. Then there's CQ knowledge, there's CQ strategy, and there's CQ action. So there's these four components that make up cultural intelligence. And so I'll go backwards. The action is how you adjust as it relates to intercultural interactions. It's what you do. It's the code switching. It's the actions that you take. But then the strategy is how you plan for those cross-cultural encounters and engagements. It's what you do in preparation for it. The CQ knowledge is pretty straightforward. Um, that is what you learn about different cultures, about difference. So it's knowing what the customs are. It's knowing what's appropriate. It's knowing what hand signals in the U.S. mean one thing but mean something different in Asian culture. It's having that knowledge. But the first component of it is drive, CQ drive. That is um, how much do you care about your ability to have cross cultural encounters effectively. Um, and so there are ways to build that drive, and for some people, and it's different for different people because we're all different. But for some people, it is that whole empathy thing. So just on a human level, I care about injustice, which I'm sure to some degree most of us have that, or you wouldn't be sitting here listening to us right now. I care about the human experience, and so when I see something where the scales are tipped and unfair, where the measures are unfair, where someone's being mistreated, where justice isn't happening, I care, and so I am willing to work on all three of those other areas because of that care. For other people, different businesses and organizations I go into, some of them I can sell on this with the heart, like just the passion, I care, the empathy. But others, it's a business decision that I have to convey. Like, do you want the Latinx market? Um, If so, then you need to develop the knowledge and you need to have some strategy and you need to take some actions. So whatever it is that motivates you, and everybody has to determine what is my motivating factor, and it's probably a combination of different things. For me, one of the things is definitely hurt. What people have gone through, what my ancestors went through, all of that motivates me. What I see other people, the misfortune that they're experiencing at the hand of oppression. But then on the other side of it, I've learned that when I can have deep cross cultural experiences, I get smarter. I have more full relationships. When I can go experience the true culture, like when I go on a trip, I love to find out what do the people who live here really do. Like it's a fuller, broader experience. So it's that combination of thing that becomes my CQ drive that pushes me to want to have more knowledge, to want to plan for those interactions, and to want to take certain actions that may include fighting against the injustices that happen. So long answer, and hopefully some nuggets that you can get out of that as it relates to cultural intelligence. And that's an assessment that I encourage everybody to take. It gives you measures of where you are in that. And there's not a right or wrong way. It's not a test. A test, you can get things wrong. It's an assessment. It just shows you where you are. And then a good facilitator can give you tools to figure out, okay, now how can I build my drive? How can I build? What is it about your personality? How can I build my knowledge? How can I build my strategy? And how can I build my actions to make sure that I'm growing in cultural intelligence? So, long answer. Hopefully, that was useful and helpful to some degree. What else? Let me see. I think there's some more questions that came through, maybe, or I saw something else come through. No, that was good. Um, Yeah. So I need you all to do something for me in the chat. In the chat. As we're thinking about, we all have different skills, talents, and abilities that we have. Um, and maybe you haven't thought about that on the level of what you can use it for to fight against injustice. Let's not even worry about that for a minute, but just in the chat, if you're comfortable and if you would, I want to challenge you. Come out of your comfort zone, even if you aren't comfortable. Um, just type in the chat, what is some skill, talent, or ability that you are confident that you have? What's something that you know that people can count on you, that you can do it, you can deliver it in a punch, that you have that, you're good at that. Just begin to enter those, if you will, if you're comfortable. Put some of those in the chat. um, let's talk about that. There's always a little delay, but for me, as we're thinking about it, I know that you can count on me to have another idea. So like my ideas have ideas. Now you can't necessarily always count on me to deliver it. Uh, but I got another idea. Like if that one doesn't work, then we'll try another one. So you can count on me. I'm going to give you an idea. Or Daniel, what's you mentioned some of yours earlier, but what's one of yours that you feel like you can absolutely, people can count on you that you can absolutely do that?
Well, the obvious one is writing,
Yeah,
but we make a good marriage, Ross, because
that's what Vanessa has told us.
I'm good at taking ideas and coming up with a plan. I
Yeah.
I've always known the difference between dreams and goals, and I've always
Hmm.
believed in the religion of alarm clock, like
Hmm.
taking something good and seeing it to fruition.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
yes, you have ideas at 3 o'clock in the morning when I'm getting up with the baby,
Yeah.
but they're good ideas that make me not go back to sleep.
Right. 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 And Camille would tell you, like, so, okay, Gallup Strengths, another thing I use for lessons, for training. There's four quadrants of leadership. So you have the executors. Those are the people like what Daniel just described. They get things done. They have a process. They have a way of doing things. They don't want you to mess with their process because their process works for them. They're finishers and they complete it. Then you have the other side of that, strategic thinkers. Like our ideas have ideas, and then those have ideas, and we have vision, and we like to change things and do it a different way. But then you have influencers, and those people pull people into the vision. And you have relationship builders, but those people make sure that the people who are already in the vision are okay, are treated well. So everybody has something, but I'm loving this. We're seeing all kind of stuff coming in, and I want to hear you all. So let me see. I'm trying to follow the comments. Sorry, my system is okay. So yeah, so some people say they listen. Finding common ground with your students. Hey, Ann, by the way, good to see you. That's awesome. Latrice, planning and organizing. Emily, I see being an influencer. Um, Let me see. Listen to people's wants and needs and recommending a solution. And so, listen, all of this stuff that you all just said, and there's probably more, but I can't see the whole thread for some reason. All of this stuff that you said, at times, like we can focus our talents and our gifts and our skills and our abilities and our giftings on different things. And at times, the focus of it can be maintaining equity, maintaining justice, making sure that things are fair. So somebody said they can make shirts. Somebody said they find that common ground with people. Some people plan. Some people are influencers. Some people find solutions. They know how to listen well, and they give a product based on what they heard as they talk. All of this same stuff can be applied to racial injustice, to navigating difference, to equity. Like, so there are times when you have to turn up those talents for a particular purpose. Your talents can work towards many outputs. Your talents, if you're a builder, some people are builders of people. So your outlet might be people. Some people are builders of things. So they might build stuff. Some people are builders of ideas. So you might build ideas. And some people are builders of systems. So you might build systems. But all of those you're building. So it depends on what the output is. What we're asking you to do in this book, what we're asking you to do in this conversation is to determine how can you build whatever it is that you build in a way that positively impacts the fight against injustice. So that you're halfway there. If you know what you can do, now how can you apply that? At times, it's not that necessarily your whole life is going to be applied to that, but how can you apply that at times to helping to impact the playing field, to helping to make sure that somebody's being treated well, to help make sure that we are actually living out, not just writing on paper, inclusive excellence. Yeah, so a whole bunch of stuff there, whole bunch of stuff. But this is just the beginning. We can't do all the work for you. You got to do some of the work for yourself too. But that's the starting point. What can I do well? What can people count on me for? And now, as it relates to wounds, as it relates to this conversation of fighting your fight, what is your fight? What is your weapon? And how can you apply that to making a difference to the things that you see that a difference needs to be made in? Um, I think that's powerful. I hope you do too. I see some of you all giving the hearts and the likes and all that. So that's awesome. That's awesome. Let me see. I'm going back. Playing the guitar. That was another one. Singing songs well enough to make people smile. Man, sometimes that's the answer. Sometimes we just need to smile. Sometimes we just need a moment of escape. Sometimes we just need to be able to go into a different place. Sometimes, trust me, some days are really hard, and I just need to go into a place of happy. If you have the ability to create the atmosphere of happy through music or through a smile or through a listening ear, that's as much a part of the fight as anything else that we've talked about. Use you to impact where you are. That's where we are tonight. Use your swag, your style, your flavor, and your flow to make impact in your environment, in your sphere of influence. I hope that's encouraging to somebody. I hope that will be a part of the challenge, that you keep diving into this, that you dive deeper, that you learn what your cultural intelligence is, that you learn what your strengths are, and that you begin to apply that stuff to make a difference. And that when you see wrong, you address wrong. When you see opportunity, that you take action to use your skills, talents, and abilities, your gifts, your callings to capitalize, to maximize that opportunity for positive impact. That's what I hope you get out of this tonight. If you don't get anything else, Daniel, what else do you have for us tonight? I think that for me, that's good. But you're so full of wisdom. I know you want to run out of here. You already told us that. Uh, What else do you got for us?
Just to piggyback off what you said, if you're doing you, chances are you enjoy it. And if you enjoy
Right.
it, it's not really work.
Right.
I mean, how hard is it to just do what you enjoy? And if you're creative enough, there's a way that you can impact people in a positive way just doing what you enjoy doing.
Yeah. That's great. Do you?
Do
Do
you?
you? Yep. So I promised something earlier, that I was going to give away one of these beautiful, beautiful books, to the person who was the most engaged in promoting our conversation tonight. And man, so many of you all did a great job. There's like 11 or 12 people who shared it. Um, some of you all tagged people. But there is one that by far surpassed you all. Uh, we thank each and every one of you for whatever action you took. It's meaningful and it helped get people here and know that we were having this conversation. Hopefully, it's been a beneficial thing. I appreciate seeing those great comments. My brother, Edsel Trice Jr., JJ is in the house. It's
JJ.
good to see you, bro. Been praying for you and glad to see you with us tonight. But yeah, we have a book giveaway and I promised that I was going to announce the winner, and then I'll send this book out tomorrow to our very special winner. And there was a person who took the challenge to heart, who takes every request that we make in support of Wounds to Heart, who is one of our biggest supporters. And that is someone who's family to both of us, and shared the, and tagged, I believe it was 100 people that this individual tagged to let them know about this talk. And so she ran away with the race when she tagged that many people, and then she shared her own share. She started a watch party, and I know that she's on tonight facilitating a conversation in her own watch party. And that is none other than our own Aunt Deborah Gant. You are the winner. I know you already have books, plural, coming to you because you bought them for Christmas gifts for people, and to give away to many people. So we appreciate your support. But you can add another one to your collection. We are going to send it to you. We know that you will use it well. We know that you will make sure that it has impact, and that it makes a difference in somebody's life, as you often do. She's also a master teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we love, right now, she's offering supplemental. She didn't ask me to do this. She offers supplemental instruction, or if you're homeschooling your children, she is a master teacher. You can reach out to Deborah Gant. She's done work with my daughter to help prepare her. She's got her beyond where she needs to be for her class, and she did that in a summer intensive study. And she learned more than most students learn in a year, in a few weeks, several weeks with Aunt Deborah. So we're going to be sending you a book. I'll follow up with an inbox to find out all the details, where you want me to send it to, and all of that stuff. But we thank you so much for your support, your constant support of both Daniel and I, and of Wounds. We thank you so much for all the work that you're doing and all the work that each of you is doing to support this endeavor. It's so exciting that you all have, many of you have the book. I know some of you are still waiting on it. You should have it any day now. But we're excited about it tomorrow. It'll be in some of the major stores. It's going to be a cool day, and we'll talk to you a little bit more about that. But thank you all so much for your time tonight. We appreciate the support. We're looking forward. Nuevo County, we're virtually coming to you on Thursday. On Thursday for the Beautifully Different Talk, the kickoff to the Fremont Foundation's The Stronger Together series. We're so excited about that. You can still register. There's still a few spots available. We'll put it in the chat where you can go to register for that. We're excited about that. It's going to be an awesome time. We're going to love engaging this conversation with our place of origin. And this is sponsored by the Fremont Foundation up there in Nuevo County near White Cloud, near Nuevo. Um, and also underwritten with support by the Michigan Humanities Council. Thank you all so much. Join us there. It's going to be a great time. We're going to both do some reading. We're going to read a chapter of the book. We're going to deal with some questions from the audience. Even if you're not in Nuevo County, even if you're not from Nuevo County, you can register. It's a free event, but you must register to attend. It's in there. I see the comment just showed up. the Fremont Area Community Foundation's website. You can still register for that. It's coming up on Thursday. Join us there. A lot of great things coming up. We got some podcast interviews coming up this week that those will start to be active. Then we have some stores that we're doing some events at coming up soon. So we're
Virtually.
busy with Wounds virtually. Everything's virtual. So you don't have to miss it. You don't have to travel around the world, and neither do we, even though we wouldn't mind a few of the trips. You don't have to travel around the world, and we don't either. So we'll virtually, I will present um, in San Diego, in Los Angeles, and in Mexico from upstairs. From upstairs. But we're excited about the opportunities, and we hope that you will be too. You can visit Daniel's website, DanielAbbottFiction.com, and get a lot of information. You can also find where you can purchase the book. There's all the links for Amazon and Barnes and Noble and all the places, the major places that it's available. I'm excited that a major bookstore in Nashville, Parnassus, is going to be carrying it. So for all my local Nashville people, you can go to Parnassus Bookstore over by Green Hills Mall. And they'll have the book as well. Several places around the country will have the book as well. But you can also order it online. You can also visit my website, razeljones.com, and you can find information about our upcoming events and different things there as well. You can join our mailing list, and you'll be in the know. We'll keep you in the know of what's going on with Wounds. We thank you all so much for all of your support. We hope you have a phenomenal night, phenomenal time, and tomorrow, vote and read. Vote and read. Thank you all so much. Any last words, Daniel?
Goodreads contest.
Oh,
We
yeah, yeah, yeah. Tell us.
If you are a member of Goodreads or you want to be a member of Goodreads, our publisher is giving away 50 free signed copies of the book. You have to register on Goodreads, and the winner will be announced or the winners will be announced on November 10th. So still some time for some free books, and if you already have the book, win and gift it to somebody. And
Yeah.
as your book come in the mail, take a selfie, tag us in it. We love to see it. We love to hear the feedback. If you don't like it, if you don't like the book, inbox us and tell us why. Don't don't blast us on your comments. But we
Along with that, with the Goodreads, if you do, hey, we encourage everybody who will, not just if you can, if you will, set up an account, go over, leave us a review. All of those reviews matter. If you bought the book on Amazon, tomorrow it'll be open. You can go back and you can give us a review there. All of that helps us to reach more people so that we can impact more people positively for this cause. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make a difference. And the more people we can reach, the more difference we can make. So thank you all for everything that you do to help us. Daniel, I cut you off. I didn't mean to. Keep going. Keep going.
No, it's all right. I was just thank you so much for all the support. This has been a draining process writing this book. It was painful and therapeutic, and those of you that don't know the publishing industry, it normally takes a few years to write a book of this magnitude, and the sacrifices that we put our wives and our children through and our bodies and our
Yeah.
brains through, it was rough. And
Yeah.
God willing, we got through it, and we're really happy that everyone's been so supportive and promoting the book, buying the book, reading the book, and we sincerely hope that it'll open your eyes and inspire change in your lives individually. And thank you so much.
Absolutely. I agree. Thank you. Thank you all so much. I think that's it. Thank you all for all these great comments. I see my cousin Nadine and several of you. Thank you for joining us tonight. We'll have more of these talks. Be on the lookout. Be on the mailing list, and you'll hear about them too. But yeah, be on the lookout. We'll have more conversations. We're trying to just have impact. We're trying to make impact and help us all to grow in these areas. So yeah, be on the lookout. Thank you all again. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Good night.
Peace.